The show begins and we meet two women on a train, a young woman and a slightly older woman. They're talking. The young woman is a little bit upset and the older woman is trying to calm her down. She offers her water, a sweet. She tells her the train's about to go into a tunnel. The scene changes and we find ourselves in a restaurant in Dublin. The young woman is the waitress in the restaurant. We discover she owns the restaurant with her brother. Her father has recently died and left it to the two of them. Over the course of the first few scenes, we discover that her brother is in fact adopted and has no blood relationship to her. We have two characters that come in every night to the restaurant. They take drugs, they drink, they flirt with Mirandolina, the character's name, and they try and seduce her. Sitting at the bar is another man, silent. He watches and doesn't say very much. Over the course of the scenes, we discover that all those four men, in their own way, are interested in seducing, controlling, and dominating Mirandolina. But she's a young woman with wit and charm and intelligence. She's a student at university. She wants to do a PhD in feminist literature. She wants to escape. We've decided to choose costumes that are a little bit heightened. They're a little bit ultra-naturalistic. So we use natural costume ideas, but then we add something, maybe a colour, maybe a fabric, maybe something to heighten them. Because we want to notice the larger-than-life elements of the characters. Like, for example, the ghosts are all dressed in black and grey and white, but they're dressed in velvet. They have sunglasses. They look a little bit funky, a little bit fashion plate. Not really what you would think of when you think of a ghost. But they straddle a world of textures and light, and the clothes that we've chosen for them are so that the light will bounce in a certain way, that fabric will have maybe a halo light around it, or that it will shimmer or disappear into the dark. The music is all original composition. We've brought Anna Malarkey from Ireland, and she's composing music that straddles Italian, Irish, folk, jazz, with a little bit of her own music. She's also a singer herself. So, for example, when Mirandolina dances in the bar with Fiume, she's playing one of Anna's own recorded pieces. So the music is all original and composed particularly for the show, but inspired really by what you might hear on a radio in an Italian bar or an Italian restaurant in Ireland. A little bit cheesy, but lots of fun. And the lights, we've decided to play around with lights. So rather than something very conventional, we're drawing attention to certain scenes in the play by using fluorescent lights that kind of fly in and out. We're using these lights across the front of the stage to try and create a little bit of darkness behind them so that we can surprise the audience with the appearance of people. But we're moving between sort of something that looks like a natural or a typical restaurant situation and a very contemporary kind of stark fluorescent state that's kind of out of the world of naturalism. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, we'll decide how much or how little of those two states to use at different times. So the set and costumes have both been designed by Katie Davenport, and we wanted the same person to do both because the texture of the world and the texture of the costume, we want to kind of be interchangeable. They need to be able to merge from one to the other. So for example, we've chosen grey fabric to frame a lot of the images, a kind of grey velour or velvet. And also many of the costumes have velour or velvet or something, so that there is a sort of a synchronicity between the texture of the ghost world and the texture of the space that they're in. The costume and set for the restaurant are very typical, so we've just used typical contemporary clothes a waitress might wear, a young woman, a little bit of a sense of her own identity though. She's not a neutral waitress, she has a uniform but she adapts it a little bit to her own taste. So we have a little bit of, we're trying to make sure that the costumes help us support the identity of the character and the individuality of the personalities of the different characters. In the original 1700 play, the men who come into the restaurant are kind of elites, they're barons and princes. So we have a sort of a parallel in the Dublin version, which are bankers and financiers, men with money, men with a large disposable income. They come into the restaurant and buy Bollinger, for example. So we're trying to keep the parallel of all the characters, and even though we're bringing them into a contemporary world, we're using a lot of the aesthetic qualities of the original period, textures and colours and fabrics to try and speak to that 1700 aesthetic.